Hello, Dave here. Welcome to Learn JavaScript with me, going through the book exercises. I am learning JavaScript. Hopefully we're learning it together. And this is based on the book Modern JavaScript, Develop and Design. It was written by Larry Ullman. Here's the book cover. I picked it up off of Amazon. But if you want to go ahead and try to find anything out about it, you go to larryullman.com, or I'm sure if you did a Modern JavaScript develop and design search, you can find it that way also. Um, no relationship or anything with Mr. Ullman, except I purchased his book. So let's go ahead, and once again, it's larryullman.com in case you're interested in going out there. I've created what I'm calling my JavaScript showcase. And here are the exercises. And so far, I've gone through chapter 4, 5, 6, 7, and now we're in chapter 8. And this is really the first exercise in chapter 8. I have the exercises out here. I haven't done the other ones yet, but if I just bring up the chapter 8 exercises here, and again, just play it around, and hopefully as I learn some JavaScript, we'll clean this up and make it a little bit prettier. But started out, the last one, we did this utilities library. And I just put the code out here just to have an item out here because that was really the first exercise in chapter 8, and it didn't really have anything else associated with it. Not really necessary. If you come out to event handling 2 here, this is the one we're going to discuss today, and this is just doing a little mouse over, and you'll notice that it's showing how many milliseconds since the epoch, or epic, I guess. I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but look at that. If I mouse over that element, you'll see the numbers change, and it's the number of milliseconds since 1/1/1970, and that's this official date item. And the whole purpose again here is that I'm triggering when this loads an event listener, and it's listening for this mouse over on this element right here. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the code in a brief moment. But first, let's go ahead and go into debug for a second. And if we go into debug, let me go ahead and detach this just so I can bring it up here and we can see it a little better. I'll scrunch that a little bit. And once again, this console, excellent, probably the best tool helping me learn JavaScript. But if I go to the script here, I'll click reload, and it loads that script out there. And you'll see here, this is the HTML, and it's showing us all of these variables. But if I click on this guy here, I can choose which object I want to look at. And notice I have 2 .js files here in my JS directory. One is this chapter 8 epic, or epoch, and my chapter 8 utilities. And if I click on the chapter 8 utilities, here you can easily see the utilities that we created, and that's what we're going to take advantage of. The code for this guy is actually pretty small. And if I zip over here, look at how small that code is. We're going to go ahead and look at that in the editor. Let me put our debugger back for a moment, and we will go ahead, and I just want to show you that, yeah, if you come out to davecoast.com, I have a learning JavaScript on the nav bar, and that'll take you to js.davecoast.com, where I have all these items and all these exercises so far out there. I'm calling this our little sandbox. My sandbox is your sandbox. Go ahead, go out, debug away. And I'm actually doing my work here. Here's this guy again, and that's on my local host on my XAMPP server. So also out here, I have a global post, and as I'm going along, you can download all the HTML, JS, and CSS. There's only one style sheet, but all the HTML and JS, just click this link here, and you can download the code, although it's probably in your best interest to type away. So let's go ahead and take a look at the code. And I'll bring up, I'm using Notepad++ for my text editor here. And here is the HTML. And basically, we have this one div here, and it's got epic out ID, and that's where we actually talk to the actual screen and the visitor. Here is the actual JavaScript code, and here's the utilities code, and we'll briefly walk through this, but based on which ones out of here we're using. But you'll notice that there's only from 9 to 20. Those are the only lines of actual code here, so can't get much simpler. And we'll buzz through it once quick in the debugger just to see it work. Once again, it starts at the bottom, and based on the window.onload, we set that equal to an anonymous function. This anonymous function does this event listener, and this is, notice it's u.addEvent, so that method is part of our utilities. And in there, we pass it 3 parameters, or 3 arguments. The first one is a reference to the epic out ID. That's the data that we see out there. The second one is mouseover. That's the type of event we want to listen for. And update duration is the function to execute whenever this event is triggered, right? And also, right, and that's the end of our add event. And then we actually run it. We actually call this function once just to get it going the very first time, so we don't have to wait for a mouseover for it to occur. This update duration basically just creates a new date object, right? It creates a variable called message out and puts in it the concatenation with the word it's plus the now.getTime, so it's using the getTime method, which basically shows us the milliseconds, right? And we do this message out concatenated with the milliseconds, so this is just the text here, right? And then we do the u.setText, so that's our utility library, .setText, and that's our element, and there's our message. So once again, if I come out here and look at this, right, here's the element that we mouse over, and you see the numbers change every time I mouse over that guy, and there's that text in the middle. So, well, let me bring this guy back up here. So now we see these objects here. We're also using our utility library, which is great now that we've created it, and we can use it all over again. And we're using this method here, which adds an event listener, and we're using this method here, which puts text out to the HTML, and we're also using this method here, this $sign method, which sets up a reference to the HTML element. And it's basically doing the document.getElementById. So let's take a quick look at those guys. And we'll see this again as it actually executes it in debugger. But just to show you, here's our utilities.js, and this is what we created. That was the first, that was number 1 in chapter 8, and now we're in number 2. We're actually doing our first little simple JavaScript to utilize this. But this $sign method basically just does a document.getElementId based on the ID that it was passed, right? And we see here that I'm passing it epic out ID. And epic out ID, here's that ID, right? Here's our span from the HTML. Going back to our, and here's our second one that we use, or another one that we use, the set text. It gets 2 arguments, the message text and the element that it goes to. And notice that that is using the this.$element ID, because that is, in order to use this other property of the U object, it needs to use the this keyword. And we also are using the add event listener. We're not doing a remove event, so we're only using 3 of our 4 functions. But again, the idea is learning how to use a utilities library. And our utilities library, all of our methods are built under one object, and it's called capital U, and that's why you see the capital U dot for our method usage. Here's our add event. It does a function with 3 arguments, right? An anonymous function with 3 arguments. What object we're going to listen on, what type of event we're going to listen for, and what function to execute when that function is triggered. And then here is the browser agnostic code to make that happen, right? If it's not Internet Explorer, it uses the add event listener method. And if it is Internet Explorer prior to 9, I believe, it'll use the attach event method. So let's go ahead, buzz through it quickly. It's pretty darn simple, straightforward. We'll just buzz through it in debugger just to see it real quick. So here's our code. I'm going to turn on Firebug. I'm going to detach Firebug so we can see it a little better. I'm going to reload it, get the actual JavaScript up. Here's the JavaScript. I'm going to set a breakpoint here at the first executable item, right, within our update duration. Right, so now if I reload this page, see it's triggered our JavaScript here. It stopped at our breakpoint. And you'll notice, right, if I look back here, we don't have anything out here yet. So let me bring this guy back. And we're going to go ahead and create this new date object, right? This variable now, right now it's undefined. Again, in debugger, it is highlighting the line it is about to execute. I'm going to just use the step key here. So now I've created this now, right? Look, it created a date object, right? We can see that date object over here, right? Here's our watch variables. And I'll step again. And again, the beauty of Firebug, love it. See, look at this, message out. Just hovering shows me the values, right? So I can inspect these variables just by hovering. Even though you can see them over here, it's just a full-featured debugging tool, and it's a wonderful thing. So now we're going to go ahead, right? So we do the now.getTime, right? We see that it's got some milliseconds there. Now we're going to do this message out and add this since the epoch, the additional text. We've added that additional text, see? Now we're going to set this text and we're going to execute this U object. So now when I step, ooh, look at that, it brought up the utilities.js and it stepped right into my set text method here. And it, as I step through this, it is going to put that message text out, right? And here's, it's using that $. It's getting the reference using this document.getElementById, right? So now it's gone ahead and created its reference, and now it's going to put the element out, and it returns true. So now I return to my epic.js, and we see here that here the u.setText, I step one more time, and it has set that text. So now you see that the text is out here, and we're going to execute this update duration. or that's what we just executed. And now we're done with that debugging session. So if I come back here, right, and I hover over that, ooh, look at that. It just triggered because my event listener caught it and triggered me through, and it'll now run through this update duration function one more time. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my breakpoint. I'm going to just hit continue here to go through, reattach my debugger to the bottom of the screen. And we can see now that right now I just hover over it. It's a beautiful thing. One other thing just to see real quickly here. And bear with me a moment here. I want to bring up my HTML here, and you'll notice one other thing here. Here's the two files that are being included, and the utilities are being included before the Chapter 8 epic.js, and that's because these utilities are used within this guy, so they need to exist before this guy is loaded. So we load this one first. And that's another important guy to note. There we go. There's our mouse over, and walk through it in debug. So we added an event using our utilities, and we can mouse over it and it updates the data. Very simple example, but it shows and tests that our various items are working. And again, you can go to js.davecoast.com. All these examples are out there. Go out there, and I recommend going out there in Firefox and popping it in debugger and working through it, and enjoy. My sandbox is your sandbox. This is Dave from davecoast.com. Any comments, questions, please let me know, dave@davecoast.com, or leave a comment at the bottom of the video. Once again, thank you very much for watching.